Yes, many environmental problems threatened the world. One of such is flood. And here in Nigeria, flood has been a very serious situation and is a perennial problem. And of course, when flood happens in Nigeria, there are tales of wars and all that. And of course, we know recently what is happening in the northern part of the country. And so this necessitates the need for us to come up with issues like this to talk about on our program and create awareness and efforts being intensified to check flooding in Nigeria and in those states here. And so in this week edition of Midweek Connect, we will be looking at flood, and of course we have officials of NEMA and other agencies there related with it to talk about this particular menace that has claimed lives and left us with tales of woes, like I said before. And so welcome on board. I am Udakobong Achibong, and of course I'm co-presenting with Ifoma Ukafo.
Well, good morning.
It's been a while.
It's been a while, honestly.
In fact, so
it's so refreshing presenting with you again.
Of course, it's really interesting.
I'm very
So
welcome.
good to have you around here.
And you too.
All right. Yes, like I said. But before we go into the discussion we have for today, let's bring to you the tidbits. In portions of its food security program, the Edo State government is set to commence the new planting season for the year 2025. This was during an inspection of 20 hectares of land at the Goraki Farm Settlement in Via Southwest local government area of the state.
In the farmer right from youth. So this is one of his priority, to make sure Edo is self-satisfied when it comes to food production. We are going back to the era of Green Revolution, where we were able to produce and feed others and even export.
We have a collaboration to ensure our own is the Fadama, is just for the food security. Very soon, as they have done with plow, we will bring a lot of things, maybe the seedling, the fertilizer, and the machines to do all those things.
The title of Emeritus Professorship has been described as noble in the field of academia, and the conferment of the title on senior academic in Nigeria should be based on merit and earned for continuous academic boost in the university system. This is part of recommendations by Emeritus Professor Patrick Edebo Igbinovia at the first Emeriti Professorship Public Lecture at the University of Benin.
Whole country, we have about 300 emeritus professors. They are just sitting down. When you are an emeritus professor, you should give value to your university. You can teach, you can do research, you can advise the vice chancellor.
I'm sure there's nobody who has actually taken time to collect the data as he has done. And the summary is also very good, which is that so far, the protocol has been followed in appointing emeriti professors.
These are great men and women that have served the academia, but he is saying that even though they are so recognized now, they should not retire. They should continue to help the system, and the system should continue to recognize them.
There should be an attempt by the NUC to streamline the award of emeritus professorship to professors who are deserving of it in Nigerian universities.
People like me retired will be happy to be an emeritus professor.
Without exempting himself, he has been able to express that it's an office that is of a very high moral rectitude, and the quality of such a person must not be compromised.
Inherited blood disorders advocates are pushing for comprehensive coverage of all kinds of blood disorders in health insurance schemes nationwide. This call emerged from a high-level meeting for inherited blood disorders advocates from across Africa, which took place in Abuja.
Total hip replacement, which each and every sickle cell patient knows about it.
And that's the reason why we are asking for National Inherited Blood Disorders Day in every country, so we can have the awareness, visibility, and get more policy makers to have empathy around these disorders.
They need to have expert care, and it's expensive, and they pay out of pocket. They should be treated free. Those are the kind of laws that we want, laws that make sense.
And that's where advocacy comes in. Honestly, we cannot achieve much, if anything, without strong advocacy, both by the larger community and the community of patients themselves.
The need for people to always enhance professionalism and response against all forms of disaster for better society is the focus of a stakeholders flood and disaster management meeting in Ekiti. The Director General, National Emergency Management Agency, Zubaila Umaru, stated this during the flag-off of the 2025 Flood National Preparedness and Response Campaign in Ado-Ekiti.
That are likely to be impacted by flooding on how to act and live with it when it eventually happens.
I urge every one of us to be the change agents by sensitizing our people on what can predispose our environment to flood.
A special appeal goes to all the local government and SCJ chairmen to move around their various SCJs and local governments and take proactive measures in areas that are likely to be affected by flood in their respective local government and SCDA to prevent the occurrences.
Yes, our discussion this morning is going to be on flooding and so many ways to mitigate this menace. So please stay with us.
Do you live in Aduawa and environs, or you need a conducive and open field in Aduawa for your wedding receptions, birthday parties, annual ceremonies, family or corporate events in a serene and conducive environment that is close to nature? Then look no further. NTA Benin Aduawa is the place for you. NTA Benin Aduawa has a large field for all your events and ceremonies. Also, at NTA Corporate Headquarters, TV Road, we have a state-of-the-art, fully air-conditioned, ultra-modern hall for all kinds of indoor events with a standby generating set, therefore ensuring uninterrupted power supply. We also have NTA Pavilion for all outdoor events at the same venue. Guess what? Our prices are affordable, locations are easily accessible, venues conducive and highly secured. Our outside broadcast van is available 24 hours and can broadcast your events live. And above all, you can air your events on our award-winning program like Events and Style. And any booking on the field or hall gets a bonus of free news coverage. Wow! What are you waiting for? Grab this opportunity and have your celebration in a grand style. For inquiries and bookings, please call NTA Benin, the award-winning station. Do you live in Aduawa and environs, or you need a conducive and open field in Aduawa for your wedding receptions, birthday parties, annual ceremonies, family or corporate events in a serene and conducive environment that is close to nature? Then look no further. NTA Benin Aduawa is the place for you. NTA Benin Aduawa has a large field for all your events and ceremonies. Also, at NTA Corporate Headquarters, TV Road, we have a state-of-the-art, fully air-conditioned, ultra-modern hall for all kinds of indoor events with a standby generating set, therefore ensuring uninterrupted power supply. We also have NTA Pavilion for all outdoor events at the same venue. Guess what? Our prices are affordable, locations are easily accessible, venues conducive and highly secured. Our outside broadcast van is available 24 hours and can broadcast your events live. And above all, you can air your events on our award-winning program like Events and Style. And any booking on the field or hall gets a bonus of free news coverage. Wow! What are you waiting for? Grab this opportunity and have your celebration in a grand style. For inquiries and bookings, please call NTA Benin, the award-winning station.
NTA Benin, reaching you from the ancient city of bronze, the cradle of black civilization.
Do you live in Aduawa and environs, or you need a conducive and open field in Aduawa for your wedding receptions, birthday parties, annual ceremonies, family or corporate events in a serene and conducive environment that is close to nature? Then look no further. NTA Benin Aduawa is the place for you. NTA Benin Aduawa has a large field for all your events and ceremonies. Also, at NTA Corporate Headquarters TV Road, we have a state-of-the-art fully air-conditioned ultra-modern hall for all kinds of indoor events with a standby generating set, therefore ensuring uninterrupted power supply. We also have NTA Pavilion for all outdoor events at the same venue. Guess what? Our prices are affordable, locations are easily accessible, venues conducive and highly secured. Our outside broadcast van is available 24 hours and can broadcast your events live. And above all, you can air your events on our award-winning program like Events and Style. And any booking on the field or hall gets a bonus of free news coverage. Wow! What are you waiting for? Grab this opportunity and have your celebration in a grand style. For inquiries and bookings, please call NTA Benin, the award-winning station.
Yes, if you are just joining us, this is Midweek Connect on NTA Benin. It's a program that we do x-ray what happens in the society, and of course we also take your input on what we have to discuss. And today we have a very interesting topic to look at. You know, in Nigeria we have environmental problems, and one of such is the flood we do experience in this country, and we know the effect it has created across the country and even here in the state. And so we normally bring in guests here to x-ray more on what we have to talk about. And at the center of talking about curtailing, mitigating, fighting flooding and all that in the state and in the country, we have the authorities here with us in the studio. And so I would like to start with the man here sitting close to me, my right here. I'm talking about Ojedemre Kenoma. Yeah, I think head of operations, NEMA, Benin Operations Office, National Emergency Management Agency. So you're welcome to the studio.
Thank you so much. Good morning.
Thank you for coming. And of course, next to him here, we have Honorable Jerry Da, who's our Executive Secretary, Edo State Emergency Management Agency, Edo SEMA.
You're welcome to the studio, sir.
Thank you for having me here.
And of course, you could see from their caps.
Yes.
You really know where they are
Nema,
coming
so
from. So we really
we
have what to give to you this morning. So thank you so much, gentlemen, for coming to the studio. But before we dive into the discussion, I think let us launch this discussion with a backgrounder.
This period of rainy season is usually characterized with heavy rainfalls, which cause flooding in most parts of Nigeria. The disaster has been a nightmare to government at all levels as life and property are lost. However, most recently is the Mokwa flood in Niger State that has submerged the market town, caused several damage, and sadly more than 100 persons have lost their life, while scores are still missing in the flood. This flood issue have continued to pose challenges as Edo State is working towards preventing any occurrence in the state. These and more are the crux of discussion this morning.
Thank you so much, Mary, for that backgrounder. Yes, we are talking about flood in Nigeria, and from what you've heard from that backgrounder, we've heard of Mokwa. I think that's what's happening recently now when we are talking about flood in Nigeria. So I will start with Nema. It's Nigeria. Looking at flood, what do you think? You keep having this occurrence. It has become a perennial problem in Nigeria. So can you get the assessment of flood in Nigeria?
Yeah, the issue of flooding in Nigeria has become a recurring decimal because of one of the reasons is climate change. Climate change is one of the reasons. Now we have erratic or the pattern of rainfalls can no longer be determined. So we have irregular rainfalls, although we have early warning.
Yes.
We have early warning. At the beginning of every year, the Nigerian Meteorological Service Agency Authority, and they give us the seasonal climate prediction. And NISA also gives us annual flood outlook. And these are early warnings for us, because NIMET is telling us about the pattern of rainfall for the year, and NISA is telling us about the flow of water, the water level for the year. But climate change has affected this so much. But with the early warning we have, we have a way we can prepare to reduce the impact of the flood. So if we prepare properly, we're able to reduce the impact of flood because of the early warning we get. Now at the national level, this year we're trying to bridge the gap between the early warning and the preparedness. It's one thing to get early warning, it's another thing to be prepared for it. So this year we launched the National Preparedness Response Campaign. This is targeted at getting this early warning to the grassroots. And that for Edo State was done on the 28th of last week at John Odege Oyegu Public Service Academy. And this is an avenue for us to get this message of preparedness down to the grassroots. And after that session program at that venue, we also went down to a community, Ilushi. Yes, Ilushi, yes.
Always is a
prone to flooding, annual flooding. To get this message of preparedness down to the community, because when this happens, the community it hits.
So what are the preparedness? When you talk about preparedness, what do you mean by that? You know, because is it that IDP centers are set up now? Then emergency response materials are already in place. So what kind of preparedness?
Okay, I think let me take
from SEMA.
We are looking at it because I want to ask you, SEMA is national and it has talked about warnings and all that have been given. So far, what has been the warning? Those states is going to be affected. We heard of it.
Okay, part of what we've done, like he mentioned, we are working closely with NEMA and other key stakeholders like NIMES and NISA. These early warnings have been issued to us, so ours is to prepare. And part of that preparation, what we've done so far is to identify those flood-prone areas. We've been able to cover 15 out of the 18 local governments, which are the major ones hit by flood, especially 3 local governments. We have Isako Central, Isako East, and Eastern Southeast, which is Ilushi, where we just mentioned now.
How about Okbela?
Okbela is in Isak or West, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay, you've covered.
Yeah, we've covered those areas.
Okay.
So part of those things we've done is to map out those areas that are high risk to flood issues, where these communities like Ilushi, Olobo, and Nikoroga in Ovia Southwest, and a lot of others we've been able to identify. And part of another sensitization we'll be doing is to take this message out to the grassroots, getting community health, traditional institutions, and youth groups involved, because they are the one at the community level. So they will help us take this information to the people living in those communities. And one of the things we've also done to also carry our elderly ones along, those that does not understand English. So we've been able to prepare this early warning alert languages in local dialects in Benin, Esa, and Afema, to be able to sensitize these people of early warning signs about this flooding when it comes.
Okay, let me come to Nema. So what are those as in, how can you itemize this the disaster that this flood? Because when you talk about, you know, people losing their lives and properties, what kind of, how will you itemize, how will you characterize this disaster, the way it happens in communities when flooding comes?
Are you talking about the impact?
Yeah, the impact, maybe destruction in farmlands, this one, that one, so that people will really understand. Because when you say flood, people might just think about, like yesterday we were going home, you see flood along the road. Is it that kind of flood we are talking about? So how maybe can you use the Niger situation
Okay, I understand where you're coming from. Yeah, flood, we have different kinds of, we have flash floods.
Okay.
And our flash floods occur where most cases in the urban area where you have blocked drainages and all that. In GRA, for example, what happens in GRA? If you go back in the years, the original plan of GRA was to have houses that have lawns, green areas. So if you notice in the past, we didn't have those floods because when the rain falls, it sinks into the ground naturally. But if you look at modern construction in GRA today, we have concrete flooring.
You're talking about Benin
GRA. That's an example of flash flooding now. Okay. A cause of flash flooding. Okay. We now have concrete floors. Most houses have concrete floors. When the rain falls, no longer has where to go to. We must flow to the major roads. Like your compound here in NTA now. If it rains for 7 days, this place will not be flooded. Why? Because it's a green area. Now, we can also have rural flooding. Like in case of Mokwa, for example, now, we have a statistics that we said over 3,000 people affected, but only 1,500 people displaced. Why is that? Because in being affected, your farmland would have been affected, but your house was not affected. So flooding affecting farmland affects economic activities, their means of livelihood. So you are affected by the flood. Also, there are some people that are affected by the flood that the houses are affected, but after the flood they could go back immediately. So they are affected but not displaced. Okay. That's why we have statistics for over 3,000 affected, only 1,500 displaced. Those are the ones that have been displaced from their residence and their homes. Okay. And they cannot go back to them. But when we talk about flooding, the impact is mostly on agriculture. It can affect agricultural, economic, livelihood. It can even affect schools, education. Because in most cases, when the community is flooded and we are looking for camps, IDP camps or safe places, we end up using some schools in some cases. This affects the educational system. So flooding itself is an economic problem affecting the whole society.
Okay, so Sema, do you have a statistics of this damage flood can cause or have been causing in Edoze? Because I know like Okbela and all those Lushi and all those communities are agrarian communities. So can you paint a picture of what, when you talk about flood disaster now, how it affects the people? And we're talking about food shortage, you know, so how do you explain to viewers out there to really understand how this flood we're talking about is affecting those communities? Because we say flood, people might not really, so Yeah,
You have the statistics and the places.
Okay, like in recent years, from what we've been able to gather, like I made mention earlier, 3 communities, and 3 local governments are mainly and majorly impacted when flood comes in the state, like Isako Central, Isako East, and Eastern Southeast. Those are the 3 major local governments that are heavily impacted, like Anegbete, Ilushi, and Udaba. Part of these communities are heavily impacted because you know why they are. Those communities are around the coastal area that borders the river Niger. So when the river, the water level is rising, so it overflows to these communities and it destroys their crops and source of livelihood. So part of what we'll be doing is still going to be sensitization, because this early warning alert is going to really help them, because we have this information we only pass across that comes through NEMA. The sea level is rising, I think from yellow to green to red. So when it's on that green level, alerts have already started to be issued to those communities, so that we can start evacuation before it gets to the red. We don't wait till it gets to the red before doing evacuation.
Is it that you wait till when the flood now? Because you know human nature, they always, you don't want to, nobody wants to move from home is home.
Yeah.
You don't want to be moved away from your home. So you'll be like, let me see when the flood is coming. So how do you now go there now to evacuate them, you know, forcefully, if I might say, in quotes, so that they can leave?
No, you can't do it forcefully. That's why we always get the community health and traditional institutions involved, because it's easier to talk to them because they see you as a foreigner when you come there. But when you get these community leaders and traditional institutions involved, they know how to now converse. Another challenge is try not to make these IDP camps too far away from their ancestral homes, because that is another major challenge we've been having with these people. So, but when it's the closeness to their ancestral homes also can also give them that relief that we are not far from our home. So whenever the flood subsides, they can easily go back to their home. So those are the measures we are putting on ground to have them make up their mind to go to these makeshift camps whenever such alerts are being raised.
All right, Nema, let me ask you. You know, right now we have this national preparedness and response campaign going on in the country. Like you said, you had one in Edo State last week, and we've had in Ekiti State, and other states are equally coming up with this. In coming up with these campaigns across the country, what are you targeting?
Okay. Yeah. Okay. We're coming up with this campaign, the campaign targets 2 key areas: preparedness and disaster risk reduction. Disaster risk reduction is ensuring that this risk, for example, the flood, if it's going to occur, let the impact not be much. That is disaster risk reduction. Secondly, it talks about capacity building and prompt response. So what part of the things we are also doing, like when we went to Ilushi, was to train the communities on some self-help procedures, first aid. What can they do to help themselves when the flood occurs before external intervention can come from the state? So that's the 2 key areas: preparedness and risk reduction, and prompt and effective response if it occurs.
So what are those response mechanisms you expose to them that you can equally share with us here?
Like I said, we taught them how to rescue from water, basic first aid. If somebody is going to drown and you're rescuing the person, what should you do to preserve the person's life? Then we also talk about drainages, ensuring that people don't build on waterways. Because that's prevented. Because we find out people are building on waterways now. People are even building in flood-prone areas. So we try to prevent people from building in such flood-prone areas. Those are the preventive measures we have. That we try to encourage them. Yes.
Okay, so let me come to Sema. You know, you talked about this, the IDP camps, you understand, in the states. I don't know, most times you have that problem of facilities. You know, you see the crowd, the statistics of people that are kept in that IDP camp. So how do you, you know, make sure that they have enough facilities to now relax and wait for when the rain will subside?
Okay, in that part, I think what we've been able to do from the statistics we have before now, like for Eastern, the ASAC or Central, the statistics we have of the IDP camp bed can accommodate 4,000 persons, displaced persons. So what we are also doing, we are not just going to rely on that 4,000. We are going to make a backup plan just in case we have maybe more than that number. So we are making plans to start taking supplies of temporary shelters to the local government, so that from there it will be easier for us to take, or rather transport them to these communities that are mainly affected by flooding. So another thing we are doing is to also make it very comfortable for the life. From some of the cases we've seen in Mokwa in Niger State, people are complaining no water, nowhere to bathe. So we are also making temporary bathrooms and toilets available, and water also, because like from the IDP camps we have, I've just been informed that some of them will have water, but we just need to start doing some maintenance, which is already ongoing, to ensure that those places is good for them to live and is conducive for people to stay when the need arises.
So you want to talk about water?
I want to add a little to what I said.
Okay.
One of the challenges we face during flood, like I said, shortage of water. And one thing the National Emergency Management has done at Mokwa, for example, we have what we call a water purifying vehicle. A water purifying vehicle. It's a vehicle that goes to the site of the flood, and when it takes that dirty flood water, out comes clean, drinkable water. And that is being provided for people at Mokwa now. And as at last week, I'm aware that the management of NEMA has approved for one of those vehicles to be sent to Edo State.
Okay.
So in case of flood, we have a vehicle that can purify water for the people to drink.
Okay.
So we'll have that vehicle.
Okay, we are talking about this flooding now. We are waiting, we're expecting, we're already preparing. So what time, as in, is it like in 2 or 3 months' time? Because I know we'll have a peak of a rainy season when, you know, water percolates and form this flashy flood and all that. So when are we looking at, when are people now expecting that this period now, the flood is coming?
We are already approaching the peak of the rainy season. Like yesterday, when it rained almost for 3 hours in Benin, I was wondering, my mind was thinking, which kind of places will be? Because almost calls from Calabar, other places said there was also rainfall, heavy rainfall for hours yesterday. So my mind was already thinking, these people that are prone to flood will already start being affected. So our preparedness plan should be in progress, in action. We're already approaching the peak of the rainy season.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So Sema, we are talking about all those Ilushi, all those Isako, all those communities in 3 local governments. How about Benin? Already, like yesterday when it rained, I mean, people could not even access their homes. If you see along this Adoawa and some parts of GRA, it's impossible. So is it that the SEMA is looking away and concentrating only in those villages and communities?
You know, actually we have been working in the, let's say, the city centers, like you mentioned, Oredo, Ego, and Ikpobaoka. Part of the challenge we're having in these city centers is blocked drainages. We have good infrastructures on ground, but the issues we're having is the drainages are blocked due to indiscriminate waste disposing by the same citizens of the state. But thank God for the governor's magnanimity by bringing back this monthly sanitation exercise, which will be able to at least mitigate this flooding. But what we mostly have in these areas are flash floods. In less than 2-3 hours, we see the water have resided. So it's no more of an impact to come, except for very few areas like Idobo, where we mentioned earlier in Ikpobaoka. But I think by God's grace, some of these drainages have been desettled, and we're also working on construction of water retention pumps that will also take some of this water in. I think when all these are done, we'll see less flooding within the metropolis.
Okay. All right, you're still watching Midweek Connect, and of course at this point in time we would like our viewers to call in and share their thoughts. You have questions to ask Kedosema and Nema. How is it in your community? What do you really want government to do and these authorities to do? So the number to call is 0703 695 7086. I repeat, 0703 695 7086, and you can also call 0810-904-2594. I repeat, 0810-904-2594. Yes, we are still talking about flood in Nigeria. And Nema, you are in concern. It's not just about flood. We are equally looking at disaster management and all that. How has it been in the country managing disaster? What has been the challenges, and what should be done differently by NEMA at this point in time to fight disaster in the country?
NEMA was the creation of NEMA was to manage disasters in all ramifications. And disaster has moved away from disaster management really to disaster risk reduction. This is what we have been trying to do. Now, this National Preparedness Response Campaign is not only for flood. It's for flood and other related hazards, pandemics. We're also doing sensitization on fire disasters. Another disaster that affects us a lot is fire disasters. Example, tanker fire disaster, for example. Is what we have happened. We have fires in different places. But tanker fire is becoming a problem. Where tankers collapse, capsize, and people scoop fuel, and there are incidents. We're also planning to have another sensitization in Edo State on tanker fire within the coming weeks. So we handle disasters holistically. We have documents, disaster response plans that tell us what to do in case of different kinds of disasters. We have a document we call the Emergency SERAP, Response and Emergency Preparedness Plan, that talks about 9 different kinds of disasters. Now, we are prepared for all this, and this document tells us who is responsible, which key stakeholder takes the lead for each kind of disaster. Because disaster management, like we say, is everybody's business, not just NEMA. NEMA does this work in collaboration with critical stakeholders, the fire service, fire road safety, the police, the SEMAs. They are critical stakeholders that work with us. So it's not that NEMA is handling disasters themselves. We are just coordinating the effective handling of disasters when they occur.
All right, let me ask you, Dosema. He is talking about critical stakeholders collaborating with them to ensure that we manage and disaster and all that. In Edo State here, who are these stakeholders you've been reaching out to? What's the collaboration like in Edo State here when you're talking about disaster management?
Okay, we have a lot of critical stakeholders that we work with in Edo State, like as he has mentioned, like NEMA and SEMA. You can always not take them away because like mother and child. Also, we have FEMA. We work closely with FEMA, that's Flood Erosion and Watershed Agency. I mentioned because they are in charge of controlling erosions, the setting of drains. We work closely also with Ministry of Environment and Sustainability. We work closely with Ministry of Health, should the case we have maybe an outbreak. Like even as we speak now about this flooding, they are also part of the stakeholders. Because when it comes to flooding, a lot of waterborne disease can happen. So we have a team also set up so that when we are deploying our teams, they are also carried along. We also work with Federal Road Safety and the Federal Fire Service and the State Fire Service, and even physical planning also in terms of like some of these houses we've identified that has been built on waterways. So theirs is to go there among those houses and bring them down. Because if those houses are brought down, at least it will create a pathway for some of these erosions to be controlled. So those are the things we are also doing. We have other key stakeholders like NIMELS, NISA, which other agencies again? A lot of agencies we work closely with, because like he mentioned, disaster management is everyone's business. Even CSO, that civil society organizations, we bring them on board. Traditional institutions, we also bring them in because everyone's input is needed when we want to talk about disaster management and emergency response.
Okay, so in what ways I wanted to come to how can people, when you talk about disaster management, especially flooding, is everybody's business. In what ways? Not as in going to change agents now, like community leaders. We're talking about maybe markets, people in their houses. How do they go about it? Can you just do it in the kind of advice or sensitization on TV like this?
Okay, like the first thing I want to clearly put out there is what they should do when such disaster or emergency happens. First thing is to call for emergency response, which is calling the emergency toll-free number.
Do you have the number?
Yeah, 739.
Okay.
It's a toll-free number. They don't charge you for it. You just pick up your phone call, just like 911 in America. So we also have direct lines you can call. We have officers on desk to pick that from our office here. So we have 2 office lines. I don't know if I should call them out.
Yeah.
So we have one is 081 40 84 8899. I will take that again. 081 40 84 8899. Then we have another number 080 70 41 9855. I will take it again. 080 70 41 9855. So those are the numbers they can call in case of emergency. But the first thing they must do is, whenever, for instance, if there's a fire accident, you must ensure you evacuate your premises first. Look for those that are most vulnerable, the elderly, the children, at least the women. Take them out. Then ensure that everyone is at the point of safety before you call for any other, after putting a call across to the emergency responders. So those are the part of the first aid emergency response, or first step you need to take. But ensure that if you have a circuit breaker, maybe for instance of lights, quickly go there and turn it off first, so that the light, or rather the fire, will not escalate further. There are a lot of tips, and I think we have some of those jingles. In our jingles, we have those tips of emergency or safety tips or safety measures that residents can quickly learn
so apart from calling, this is corn season. You find out that corn, all these corn bags and everything, you see people quickly dumping them inside the drainages. So what are your advice? Do you have maybe your men and officials that go around monitoring and trying to have way of stopping these people from blocking the drainages and every other ways to mitigate flooding?
I think part of what we do is to coordinate. At least we have an agency that is responsible for that, which is Waste Management Board. I think for some recent times that we'll be seeing a lot of adverts they'll be doing, and the penalties attached for indiscriminate dumping of refuse, especially across the city centers. Another area I think the MD spoke on, which I think we should also practice, is like some of these road transport union workers. I think we need to engage them, like make them know the reason why they have to have waste bins inside their vehicles. At least this will help passengers not to litter the street. Whenever I could see a situation where people just take the water and they throw the cans out from the window. So at least all this, if we put the implementation of these policies on ground, I think it will go a long way to salvage these situations of flooding.
Oh yes, Dema, we do have situations when we talk of flooding. At times people do say, there was a time they said the Cameroonian dam was being released, and we had water coming into Nigeria, and we keep having and people can't Nigeria really do something about this release of dams by other countries, that it is affecting us and all that? At the end of the day, the river Niger is overflown, the Benue Niger is overflown and all that. What do you think can really be done differently so that we will not be having this? Because some of these floods are caused by neighboring countries and all that, not really what is generated within the country.
Yes, that's true. Like you said, occasionally when there's heavy rainfall, and for example the Lagdo Dam in Cameroon is full, they always give us warning that they want to release their water, and they have to release their water, because if not, their dam could break. That could lead to another disaster. It's left for the government. I think we also to have built, one thing we would have done, or I think the government is still planning to do, so build a buffer dam. We build a buffer dam that can still hold back the water. So when it is released from Cameroon, our own dam, there has been a plan to build one in Kashimbila, and that plan has been there for some time. So I think the government is looking at how they can make sure that dam is done, so it will prevent flood disaster from affecting our people, because anytime that water is released from Lagdo Dam, it's a has devastating impacts, affects almost the entire country. Even in this case of Mokwa, although they said there was severe rainfall for hours, there is suspected dam collapse from a nearby dam. That they are suspected naturally. Although they are still doing engineering review to confirm if the dam really made it worse than it was. That same thing happened in Maiduguri last year. It was the dam collapse that led to the flooding of Maiduguri. So we have to look at how we can look at our dams and see how we can. Some of these dams are old. See how we can reinforce them. See how we can do some rehabilitation of our dams. Then building a buffer dam that will hold the flood water going to release from Karamu will also help in reducing the risk of flood in the country.
Those are talking about that. We are talking what support are you getting from the state government? This is a new administration in the state, and I don't know what his direction is. Talking about managing disaster in the state and all that. So what support are you getting from state government? What is his policy direction working with the state government to ensure we manage disaster in the state?
Yeah, I would say the support from the state government has been very massive. Like for the first instance, like when we just got sworn into the office, the first thing the government told me was, I don't want us to be reactive, but I want us to be proactive. So it takes proactiveness to be able to manage disaster. You don't wait for it to happen before responding. So that's part of the drive this administration have put on ground. Another area he has also contributed massively is setting up a disaster response team. Because when you have a team of experts on ground where you can brainstorm ideas and share, it will be easier to be able to manage the disasters when it happens. Not when it happens before you start looking for this team to be assembled. And we have also put up an AOC, we call it Emergency Operations Centers, where we meet and brainstorm and share ideas, put mechanisms on ground that will be able to help the agency to mitigate this disaster when it occurs. So a lot of support from the government has been in place. I will not want to lie about that. And also we've seen communities that have benefited from this government already. We've visited 3 communities in Esako, West, the Jetu Fire Market incidents, and the governor responded very swiftly to them because emergency is timely. When we talk about emergency response, it's ought to be timely because if it's not timely, then it's no longer emergency. So in even Ovia, Southwest, Madoti, and a available community where they have this communal crisis, even the governor himself went there to show support and pay a solidarity visit to them. And he also considered a team of inquiry to bring a last peace settlement because they had this communal issue. And by God's grace, peace has been restored to that community. So these are part of the government's support, and I can say boldly that we've received massive support from this state government.
Okay, Honorable Dausa, before that question on government support came, I wanted to ask you, because we're talking about the damages and bridges. So let's draw your mind back to Igboba River. So what is the state doing to make sure that, because that river, you look at the bridge there, then the river, you see people trying to mess, the river up. Then talking about these plastics, causing damages to the aquatic nature of that river. So what do you have to say concerning it? Is this government, does it have any plan for that bridge? That bridge and also the river?
For the river, let me start with the river. Like we keep emphasizing on is the indiscriminate dump of refuse that is still affecting most of the rivers. You can see most of the rivers have been silted, so they need to be desilted. So really? Because if you go inside those rivers and you see if they dredge those rivers or rather desilted, you see a lot of dumps that will be taken out from there. So the issue is not just the government alone. Who are the government? It's we the people. So we must collectively fight against this indiscriminate dumping of refuse. It doesn't just affect these rivers alone. Most of our drains as we speak now are blocked. If you deseed them this week, next month you go there again, they are still blocked. And we are spending a whole lot of resources to do this thing. And this resource can be channeled into some under building of new infrastructure rather than using it to keep the city. So the challenge I feel there is just We need to keep talking to our people, sensitizing the public on the need for them not to dispose their refuse indiscriminately. Imagine if it wants to rain and you see people already piling up their refuse, running home to gather their dirt to just trash it inside the water.
Don't you think that, if I should cut, don't you think that there may be a problem? They're talking about what are those mechanisms put in place for people to dispose of their waste refuse? Because you do hear people say, these things are too much piling up in my accommodation and all that. I don't know where to dispose of them. At the end of the day, you see, like one that was caught along the road there in Benin here. He was trying to dispose it into the river, and he was caught. And all that. People are finding ways to dispose refuse. But when there are too much around you, it's a problem. Don't you think there's equally facilities being put in place? You are talking about collaboration too, to ensure we manage all these things. Don't you think there's a problem in the area of facilities being provided for people to dispose of their,
for example,
their waste?
If some states, for example, you see receptacles placed
strategic position. Once you have your players like
in GRA now, we don't have any receptacle there. We'll keep our refuse, and at the end of the day, 1 month, and sometimes you see people burning their refuse, which also affects the environment. So
in that area, what do you have to say about this?
No receptacle.
I know you are names, but we have other collaborators.
Yeah, like the waste management. I think the MD has been here once, but I know what they are doing. They are putting up these measures on ground. From what we've seen, I've seen, I think last week, a video of these dispose of the waste buckets that have where you can put plastic, where you can put nylon.
Separate all those.
Yes, can separate them, because another area we should also look at. We need more sensitization to let these people that this thing they can also make money from them. By way of recycling.
Okay. Yes.
So we should also use turning this trash to become wealth.
Yeah. All right, we are pressed for time. So before we go, I would like to speak with Mr. Ekonoma. What will be your parting words? Talking about we are looking at management and response to emergency, because let us have in mind that the rains are still here and anything can happen. So what?
My parting word will still be in line with what we have been discussing: indiscriminate disposal of waste. We encourage our people, please, to try and not block the drains with by indiscriminately dumping their waste there, because this is one of the causes of flood. We are approaching the flood season, so we encourage our people to be aware of what is coming. And we have, like what we said, what the prediction was that 12 states will be highly impacted by flood, and in those 12 states, 43 local governments will be affected.
Is Edo among?
Edo is among those 12 states. Then 12 states will be affected by slight rainfall and flood, medium level, with 27 local governments and the FCT. So we have this early warning. So Edo is among. But we have called some of the local governments that are going to be affected: Benin City, the environs, Ikobaoka, Esa, Southeast, and others.
Alright, we know all these things are happening. So, my family, how prepared should we be in few seconds? Everybody in the state, not just Edosema, everybody, to ensure that we keep ourselves under check when these days come.
Yeah, like I said, safety is everybody's responsibility. You must first take responsibility of your own safety first before everyone can also come in. But part of what we want to part with today is Edosama is just a call away from you. Whenever you have that emergency, you can call the 739 or any of those two numbers, and we will respond swiftly to you. And always remember that your safety is our mission.
Our safety is our mission. That is from Edosema. Thank you so much, Mr. Ekonoma, for coming. Head of Operations, NEMA, Benin Operations Office, and of course, Honorable Jerry Dakusa, Executive Secretary, Dorset Emergency Management Agency, Edosema. Thank you so much for coming to share your thoughts.
Thank you for having us.
As we wrap up, what would you say?
Flood management, in fact, holistically, disaster management is everybody's business. So let's work together to make sure that we prevent flooding in Edo State.
Is that their season show? It's everybody's business. Don't wait for a Dosema or Nema to come around and help you out. You can equally start it in your corner there to ensure that when flood comes, it doesn't sweep you away. Thank you so much for being part of the program today. We hope to bring you another interesting edition next week. Until then, do have a blessed day. Good morning.
Welcome to the News at 10 on NTA News 24. We're live in Abuja. I am Dennis Adegunloye. Thanks for joining us. Let's begin with the headlines.